All right, everybody, welcome back to another session. Today I'm going to make another pendant similar to the one I made on Saturday, but this time I want to give it a really tight twist, kind of like a tornado twist. And, um, and I also want to make this a worry stone or a touchstone pendant. I thought for some reason I'd make a series of these, so I've been playing around with this, making a whole bunch lately, and just playing with the colors and seeing how things swirl up. It's been just a lot of fun playing with this format. Anyway, so let's start this one out with a little bit of clear on the end of my punty so I can pick up this piece of dichro, and it is a like a purpley magenta dichro on black glass. And when I stuck it to the clear, and then I need to just gently heat it up, and I'm realizing, woo, this one is really a little bit longer than I needed. The piece looked so small when I picked it up, but when I put it on the punty, it just looked like it grew in size. So the first thing I want to do is try to just encase the front of the dichro. I'm heating up the back side, getting my glass hot, and then flipping it over so I can swipe a little bit of clear on top of the dichro. And I don't make it all the way down, but that's okay. I can continue to just heat and swipe a little bit of glass on there as long as I am not putting the dichro directly into the flame. I'm good to go, just to add the clear wherever I need to cover up every little bit of where the dichro is showing. And then I had an idea because, it is long. I thought that I would fold this in half, and I'm so glad that I did, because when I folded it in half, all of a sudden now you have the dichro on both sides of the pendant. So every time the pendant swirls, you're going to see the dichro instead of just seeing like the black swirl and the dichro swirl. You'll see both sides swirling with the dichro. So I guess it was a happy accident. It was meant to be. So, but now that I folded it, there's a cavity inside of that I want to flatten out and make sure that it's nice and, everything is nice and pressed together so there's no bubbles inside. And I'll press it down in the center part, but that leaves like a little air hole in the top. So just by heating and rolling now, and I'm going to start it all at the base side. Let me roll out one side, kind of on the bottom half, and then I'll flip it over, heat the bottom half where the punty is, because I'm rolling, but I'm also pushing the air up and out if there is any air trapped in there. And then I can work my way to the top, further squeezing out any air pockets. And you should be fine after this to roll it out, and you shouldn't worry about having any air bubbles in there. But now I'm going to finish rolling this out and add some stripes to the side. I have a green and a blue here, so I'm going to add a little bit on both sides and just start adding my color. You know how in the last demonstration I was talking about going to the glass conferences, and because there's a conference coming up here pretty soon, I think next month at Corning. And it's sold out, so if any of you have a ticket, I hope you have a good time. But the glass conference is very interesting. It's just a whole bunch of glass artists getting together and doing demonstrations and partying and having a good time, and doing shows and stuff. And the very first conference that I went to was in Boston, Massachusetts. And I went with some people from the University of Texas. And while I was there, I took my very first flameworking class. And I didn't know a thing about flameworking. I just took it because another person that went with us took it. So I was like, all right, I'll take this class too. And it was a borosilicate flameworking class. And there was all these teachers that I didn't even know who these guys were at the time. But of course, as soon as I took the class, I did a little bit of research, and I'm like, wow, these are these guys are like at the top of their game. And it was, let's see, who was there? It was Emilio Santini, Shane Farrow, Scott Bondu Dunham, and Fred Burkhill. Those 4 people all taught the class, and it was just a crazy time. It was a lot of fun to play around with the glass. And because we didn't have a flame working facility at the school I was going to, it was really just playing around with a different type of glass working, which I never got back to until 10 years later, when I started working at the museum. But it was a lot of fun, that class. What else happened at that conference? It was the Boston. Okay, so there was a university, Cambridge. What university is up there? Anyway, it's where the Blauschka flowers are. And I got to go and see all the botanical flame working items that the Blauschka family made. I think it's Cambridge. I can't remember. Anyway, it was so cool to see such amazing glass creations being made for just the purpose of learning. Just an amazing collection that they made of botanicals and, seeds and just all sorts of foliage everything you could think of, when it came to flowers, trees, and just everything around us, they made in glass for students to study. Anyway, very cool. The Blauschka flowers. What else happened at that glass conference? Oh, it was the first time I actually felt like I saw real glass blowing. I kind of felt like we knew what we were doing, kind of at the university, but my teacher, he had just started blowing glass too. So all of us in Texas were new at this. So we were all kind of learning together. And when I saw some of the people blowing glass at the conference, I was blown away. I, for the first time, was introduced to the Italian glass workers, Lino Tagliapietra, I think Dino Rossini, and Pino, I think Signoretto. I'm not real sure. But Pino, Dino, and Lino all did a demonstration together. And I didn't know, but I guess at that time it was like a huge, big deal to have these 3 Italian artists working together. So that was really cool to be able to experience that and to also be like, I'm not blowing glass like these people are. These guys know what they're doing. I have never seen glass blowing like this. So when I got back to school, it was kind of like, wow, okay, I got to step up my game, figure out, just continue to practice the art of glass blowing. And that's what I did. I graduated with my degree in glass, which I was one of the first people to do so because the program had just started a few years earlier. And then from there, you guys know I had the stint in Alaska. And then a couple other conferences. Oh, gosh. There was one I went to in Florida, and I barely remember any of that. It was Miami. And all I really remember, I have such a bad memory, but all I remember is seeing the Salvador Dali exhibition, museum, Salvador Dali Museum. And it was just like the highlight of the whole trip. So I can't really remember if, what happened at the conference, but that was my second conference. And then I also... there was a conference that I attended in Corning, and I want to say I'd been there to 2 conferences, but I just can't remember. And one of them I was an assistant in for a demonstration that I was so, oh gosh, man, talk about nervous. I'm not very good when it comes to working in front of crowds, you guys. I got used to it at the museum because we had to do these demonstrations like, here's how you blow glass and, that kind of stuff. But it was like the same thing every time, a fluted bowl. And it was, pretty, easy for me to do. But when I had to perform at a glass conference, I just got the what scared out of me because, I'm in front of all these peers and everything. And I was just shaking like a leaf bringing these bits. I was surprised that the piece even turned out. But I was working with a group of people from the museum and, it was pretty cool. We made the Guggenheim Cup. And if you know anything about that glass, it's almost like the test to see if you're a glass maestro, if you can make the Guggenheim Cup. And this cup has hundreds of bits on it. And there's 3 people bringing bits to the gaffer. And I was one of those bit bringers. Oh my gosh, I'd never been so nervous in my whole life, you guys. All right. So, oh God, yeah, I was also in the glass fashion show. Patrick and I were both in the glass fashion show with some of our kids at the Toledo conference that was here, I don't know, like 15, 16 years ago. I hadn't been to a conference in probably 15 years. It's been a long time. I just kind of fell out of the loop. Once I left the museum, I just didn't like the whole glass blowing world, I guess. I just kind of felt like every time I would meet somebody or new people would come into the museum, it was always these, I'm better than you. You've never seen glass blowing like this before. And it was just some big, who's better than who game. And I don't play games like that. So I just, I don't know. I had a hard time with the whole glass attitude. I don't know. I know not everybody has that kind of attitude, but it's like kind of a male thing. No offense to any of you males out there. But, a lot of it was his macho stuff. Like, oh, I worked with so-and-so. Oh, yeah, well, I worked with so-and-so. And I'm just like, I just got so tired of that and a lot of just other things that were happening there that I just had to leave. But the conferences that I attended were really super fun, very cool. And the last one that I was involved in was here at the Toledo Museum. And I was able to work with Lucio Bubacco. He asked me to help him demonstrate or be his assistant during the conference. And that was like, kind of like the biggest, I've reached the top. I can't get any higher than this. That was just the coolest thing to help him demonstrate. And that was it, so I did do a demonstration myself. I was highlighted at that conference as well. So yeah, I've been there. But I just, the more I got involved in that life, the more I really, it wasn't for me. I loved everything about glass blowing, but it was the people that I just had a hard time with. Anyway, let me get back to a happier note. And I'm happy with where I am now, but sometimes you just never know what's going to happen to you. You get your dream job and then 13 years later, management changes and all of a sudden you're the bad guy. So I don't know. It just wasn't for me anymore. So I had to find my own way. And in 2020, it was right before COVID. That's when we started, Patrick and I started Scottwood Research. And ever since then, this has been like my lifeline for a lot of reasons. And So I'm just happy to be able to get back into some kind of regular glass work and to be able to reach out to people, who, like you guys, who enjoy just watching and being a part of this. I don't know. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. Let me take this other punty off here. I am going to just heat up. I hope you have followed along so far with me and my little story time here. But what I want to do here is take this punty off. And for some reason, I've been taking my punties off this way lately. And I don't know whether I just feel like I stepped up a notch and, I'm like, ooh, this is a quicker way. I can combine two different things together. So by taking the punty off and pulling the punty out, or the glass out, I have combined both of those things. So now I don't have to necessarily take the punty out, heat it up, and then tweeze it out. And that's just like a new thing I've been doing. So I'm kind of like, that's cool. Every now and then you feel like you step up a notch when you do things like that, especially when it comes to combining steps. Most of the time, it's one step at a time for me. But once you get a little faster and you start working the glass a little hotter, you can start to combine more than one step together. Anyway, so now I'm back on my punty. Let's go ahead and start to twist this up into the tornado twist. And the twist really, it takes a long time to get the glass hot enough. So you don't want to immediately start to twist until you feel the softness of the glass all the way through. And you're also watching the heat and seeing the heat even throughout the glass as well. And when I feel like everything's just right, I'm going to come up and out of the flame and start to twist outside of the flame. I don't want it too crazy twist. I want more of a controlled twist. That's why I'm out of the flame, twisting nice and slow, so I'm not like buckling up on my twist. I just want to make sure that I'm taking my time. And I go from one punty and twist to the other side of the punty and twist, as well as in the center. So I'm kind of twisting in sections, and here I am almost stretching it out a little bit. I want this a little bit longer. And now that I kind of like what's going on here, I'm going to pull my other punty out. And if I need to, I can pull the rest of that, a little bit more of that punty point off. But if I do, I want to make sure that I am rolling in the right direction, the same direction as the swirl, as the twist is going. All right. Now, let's go ahead. I have to heat this whole thing up. So right here, I'm just warming up my clear, but I'm also heating up to just smooth everything out before I do any encasement here. And this will be my final encasement. So I want to make sure everything is nice and smooth before I think about getting my clear on here. Sometimes I think about, the glass, and things that have happened in the past, people who I've met, just my whole life when it comes to glass, and everybody's path is different. I always knew that I would and I wanted to teach glass. I always wanted to be an artist. And when I found glass, it was just like, that's it. I'm done. This is it for me. And I really thought that that's what the glass blowing was for me. But come to find out, I feel like all of my glass blowing that I've done, like the studio glass blowing, large scale, it was all so that I could do flameworking better at this point in my life. I take so much from the glass blowing and incorporate those techniques into flameworking. because that's my past. That's what I, know more of. I know more about glass blowing than I know about flame working. At least, I mean, maybe not now. Maybe I know more about flame working now than glass blowing, but glass is glass. Glass is also different. There's different types of glass, but it's still working hot glass. And I kind of feel like flame working for me is being in that same setting in the studio with the glory hole and all that stuff in the furnace. It's just a small scaled down version of a hot shop. That's how I always feel about working glass in the flame, because that's my background. So now here I'm going to add a little extra clear to the top of this, so I have something to punty into. It's always nice to have a little extra clear on the end, so when you are ready to put your punty in, it's not going to mess up any of your color pattern. And now at this point, what I want to do is just heat everything up so I can get to the point of flattening this down into the worry stone shape. And I have a nice long shape, kind of wide. It's almost like a, what am I trying to say? A bicone. It's kind of like a bicone shape. So I'm going to just roll it down. And my rolling here, talking about like the hot shop and everything, when I roll the same way I would roll glass in a big studio. I'm just using one hand instead of two. But it all came from, practicing hot glass on a larger scale. I always wonder if it's easier for a flame worker to go into glass blowing, or if it's easier for a glass blower to go into flame working. Now, I'm a glass blower going into flame working, so for me, flame working seemed very, very easy. The second time I ever took a flame working class was at the Toledo Museum. So I'll talk about that at another point, maybe. All right, I am just about ready to flatten this out. So I've gotten everything nice and warm and smoothed out. Before I flatten this out, I want to make sure it is the right shape. So it's kind of like a teardrop. And I gently flatten. I don't press it down all at once. It's very slow, methodical press, flip it over, press, flip it over. Make sure that it's all the same. The width of it is all the same. And now here, all I need to do, we're getting so close to the end, I am going to fire polish both sides. And when I do the fire polishing, it's a thin, now all of a sudden we're into a thin a pendant. And the heat will transfer through it pretty quick. So I will fire polish one side and then let it cool down. And then fire polish the other side. Now here, what I want to do as I'm waiting, I am going to add clear to the side of the pendant that I'm going to press my spoon into for the worry stone imprint. If you are not worried, if you're not going to make a worry stone, then you don't have to do this. You can just use the pendant right off this punty. But what I like to do here, I've noticed since my first worry stone, that if I add a little extra clear on one side, then when I go to press it, it will not distort my pattern underneath. So on every one that I do of these now, I'm putting an extra layer or two on top of the design, and that's where I'm going to push in with my spoon. But before I can do that, I want to make sure that all that clear is where I want it to be. I don't want too much of it hanging over the edge. So I just try to clean everything up and make it look real nice before I start to just really heat it up and press in with the spoon. And what I love about this is that the black line that I added, it kind of hovers over everything and out. It's such a cool, it's just suspended in this twist. I love the way it looks. So now that everything is nice and melted and looks smooth, I can heat up just the spot where I need to press, that one side. The other side is nice and cool. And then I can press several times. I don't give it one solid press. I'll press a little bit just to make sure that I'm pressing in the center, because you can press it a little off center and it not be exactly what you want. So I do some gentle press. You know what I'm talking about. I hope. Okay, so now that that's done, all I have to do is punty this up. I'm kind of fire polishing as well right here. And I will fire polish the part that I pressed in. That's really important that you make sure this is all fire polished before you do your final punty. And I'm fire polishing here, and I'm also rolling my punty into a little pencil point. And then I'm just going to very gently stick it right on there. And then just go ahead and take the other side off. And as I'm taking this other side off, I am making sure that as the punty comes out, I'm turning it in the direction that the twist is going. All right. Now I'm ready to put on our veil that I made ahead of time this time. And so I'm going to heat up the top, and I do make sure that I put the other side of the mandrel, I dip it in water because it can get extremely hot. You don't want to burn yourself here. And then here at the end, it's a nice, gentle, just quick break. I was super happy with the way this one came off. And then here at the end, I'm just going to fire polish it and put it away. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and let me know what you think of this pendant. I'm making a whole bunch of them. We'll see what I do with them. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next time in the dungeon.